The Philippines gets hit by an average of 20 typhoons every single year. 20. Some years, it's more. In 2019, we had 26 tropical cyclones enter Philippine waters. No other country on Earth experiences this many typhoons year after year. Japan gets about 10 per year. Vietnam gets about 9. Taiwan gets about 6. But the Philippines? 20. Every single year. Like clockwork. So why? Why does the Philippines bear the brunt of the Pacific's fury? The answer lies in our location, our geography, the way the ocean works, and forces far beyond our control. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why we're the typhoon capital of the world, and why that's never going to change. To understand why the Philippines get so many typhoons, we first need to understand what a typhoon actually is and how it forms. A typhoon is the same thing as a hurricane or a cyclone. Different names for the same phenomenon depending on where you are in the world. In the Atlantic Ocean and Eastern Pacific, they're called hurricanes. In the Western Pacific, where we are, they're called typhoons. In the Indian Ocean, they're called cyclones. But they're all the same thing. A massive rotating storm system powered by warm ocean water. Here's how they form. Typhoons need 5 specific conditions to develop. First, warm ocean water. The sea surface temperature needs to be at least 26.5 degrees Celsius. The warmer, the better. This warm water is the fuel that powers the storm. Second, atmospheric instability. The air needs to be unstable, warm and moist at the surface, cooler higher up. This creates the powerful updrafts that build the storm clouds. Third, low wind shear. The winds at different altitudes need to be blowing in roughly the same direction and speed. If there's too much wind shear, winds changing direction with height, it tears the storm apart before it can organize. Fourth, sufficient distance from the equator. Typhoons need the Coriolis effect, the rotation of the Earth, to start spinning. This doesn't work right at the equator. Typhoons typically form between 5 and 20 degrees latitude. Fifth, a triggering mechanism. Usually a disturbance in the atmosphere, a cluster of thunderstorms, a tropical wave, or converging winds that start the initial spin. When all 5 of these conditions come together, a typhoon can form. And here's the thing about the Philippines. We sit in the exact spot where all 5 of these conditions exist almost constantly for half the year. Let me show you why. Look at a map of the Pacific Ocean. The Philippines sits on the western edge of the largest, warmest pool of ocean water on Earth. It's called the Western Pacific Warm Pool. This massive area of ocean, stretching from the Philippines to Indonesia to Papua New Guinea, maintains surface temperatures of 28, 29, even 30 degrees Celsius year-round. Remember, typhoons need 26.5 degrees minimum. The Western Pacific Warm Pool is consistently 2 to 4 degrees warmer than that threshold. This is like premium fuel for typhoons. The warmer the water, the more energy available, the stronger the potential storm. And the Philippines sits right on the eastern edge of this warm pool, right in the path of storms moving westward across the Pacific. But warm water alone isn't enough. You need the atmosphere to cooperate. The Philippines sits in what's called the Intertropical Convergence Zone, or ITCZ, for much of the year. The ITCZ is a belt around the Earth near the equator, where the trade winds from the northern and southern hemispheres meet and converge. When these winds meet, the warm, moist air is forced upward. This creates huge clusters of thunderstorms, the building blocks of typhoons. During summer and fall in the northern hemisphere, roughly May through November, the ITCZ shifts northward. and it sits right over the Philippines. This is why our typhoon season is concentrated in these months. The ITCZ is positioned perfectly to spawn storms that move right toward us. Now, let's talk about wind patterns. During typhoon season, the prevailing winds over the Pacific blow from east to west. These are called the trade winds. Typhoons that form in the western Pacific, and most of them do, naturally move westward, carried by these trade winds. And what's sitting in their path as they move west? The Philippines. We're like a catcher's mitt, positioned right where the Pacific throws its storms. Typhoons typically form between 5 and 20 degrees north latitude in the Pacific. Then they move westward. The Philippines sits between 5 and 20 degrees north latitude on the western side of the ocean. We're positioned perfectly, or perfectly terribly, depending on how you look at it, to intercept storms moving across the Pacific. But there's another factor that makes things worse. The warm ocean currents. The North Equatorial Current flows westward across the Pacific, carrying warm water toward the Philippines. The Kuroshio Current flows northward along the east coast of the Philippines, also bringing warm water. These currents continuously replenish the warm surface water around our islands. Even after a typhoon passes through and temporarily cools the ocean by churning up deeper, colder water, the warm currents quickly restore the surface temperature. This means typhoons can intensify rapidly as they approach the Philippines. They're constantly being fed by this warm water. And it gets worse. The Philippines sits at a latitude where the Coriolis effect is strong enough to organize storms, but we're also far enough from the equator that we don't have the stabilizing atmospheric conditions that exist closer to the tropics. This creates perfect instability for typhoon development. Now let's add in the seasonal factors. From June through November, the Philippines experiences the southwest monsoon, the habagat. This brings moist air from the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea. This moisture combines with the heat from the Western Pacific warm pool and the instability from the ITCZ. It's like pouring gasoline on a fire. And here's something many Filipinos don't realize. The Philippines doesn't just get hit by one typhoon at a time. Sometimes we get multiple typhoons forming simultaneously. Because conditions are so favorable in the Western Pacific during typhoon season, it's not uncommon to have 2, 3, or even 4 tropical cyclones active at the same time in Philippine waters. In September 2018, Typhoon Mangkhut was devastating northern Luzon, while Tropical Depression Marilyn was forming in the east, and another system was developing near Mindanao. The Pacific was generating storms faster than they could clear out. Let's talk about El Niño and La Niña, because these affect typhoon patterns too. During El Niño years, when the central and eastern Pacific Ocean warms up, typhoons tend to form farther east and track farther north. We might get fewer direct hits on the Philippines, though the storms that do hit can still be powerful. During La Niña years, like 2024 and 2025, the Western Pacific becomes even warmer than usual. The warm pool expands, and typhoon activity in Philippine waters increases. More typhoons, stronger typhoons, more rainfall, more destruction. This is why Pagasa warned that 2025 could be an unusually active typhoon season. La Niña is present, and that means enhanced typhoon activity. Now, let's compare the Philippines to other countries. Why doesn't Japan get 20 typhoons per year? They're in the Western Pacific too, because Japan sits farther north, around 30 to 45 degrees latitude. Typhoons that reach Japan have already crossed the Philippines or Taiwan, or curved northward after passing to our east. Many typhoons weaken before reaching Japan because they encounter cooler water and stronger wind shear at higher latitudes. Japan does get typhoons, about 10 per year, make landfall or significantly impact the country. But they're positioned at the end of the typhoon track, not the middle. Why doesn't Indonesia get as many typhoons? They're near the warm pool too. Because Indonesia sits closer to the equator, mostly between 5 degrees south and 5 degrees north latitude. The Coriolis effect is too weak there to organize strong rotating storms. Indonesia gets tropical storms and heavy rainfall, but not the organized powerful typhoons that the Philippines experiences. We're at the perfect latitude, not too close to the equator, not too far north. Right in the sweet spot for maximum typhoon activity. Let's talk about specific typhoons to illustrate this. Typhoon Haiyan in 2013, locally known as Yolanda, was one of the strongest tropical cyclones ever recorded. It hit the Philippines with sustained winds of 315 kilometers per hour. Haiyan formed in the warm waters east of Micronesia. As it moved westward over the extremely warm Western Pacific, it rapidly intensified. By the time it hit the Philippines, it had reached super typhoon status. The ocean temperature in its path was about 30 degrees Celsius. That's extraordinarily warm, even for the Western Pacific. Haiyan sucked up that heat energy and converted it into catastrophic wind power. Over 6,000 people died. Entire cities were leveled. Typhoon Mangkhut in 2018, Ompong locally, was another super typhoon. It formed east of the Philippines, intensified rapidly over warm water, and slammed into northern Luzon with sustained winds of 270 kilometers per hour. Again, the warm Western Pacific warm pool provided the energy. Typhoon Goni in 2020, Raleigh, intensified from a tropical storm to a super typhoon in just 24 hours as it approached the Philippines. The warm ocean water was like rocket fuel. The pattern is always the same. Formation in the warm Western Pacific, westward movement, rapid intensification, impact on the Philippines year after year after year. So here's the uncomfortable truth. The Philippines will always get massive numbers of typhoons. It's not bad luck, it's geography, it's physics, it's the way the ocean and atmosphere work in this part of the world. We're positioned in the exact location where the conditions for typhoon formation and intensification are most favorable, most often. And with climate change, things might get worse. Scientists predict that while the total number of typhoons might not increase dramatically, the proportion of intense typhoons, Category 4 and 5 super typhoons, will likely increase. Warmer ocean temperatures mean more energy available for storms. The Western Pacific warm pool is getting warmer. Sea surface temperatures are rising globally. This doesn't mean we'll get 30 or 40 typhoons per year instead of 20. But it might mean more of those 20 reach super typhoon intensity. More Haiyans, more Mangkhuts, more Category 5 monsters. Some studies suggest that typhoons are also moving more slowly, which means they dump more rain and cause more flooding. A slower-moving typhoon can sit over an area for 12, 18 or 24 hours instead of passing through in 6 hours. And there's evidence that typhoons are forming closer to coastlines and intensifying more rapidly, giving people less time to prepare. So what does this mean for Filipinos? It means typhoons are a permanent part of life in this country. They always have been. They always will be. The question isn't whether the Philippines will get hit by typhoons. The question is how prepared we are when they come. We can't change our geography. We can't move the country north or south. We can't cool down the ocean or alter the trade winds. But we can prepare. We can build stronger structures that withstand 200+ km/h winds. We can improve drainage systems to handle extreme rainfall. We can establish better early warning systems. We can create comprehensive evacuation plans. Pagasa has gotten better at predicting typhoon tracks and intensities. The forecasts are more accurate now than they were 20 or 30 years ago. People have more warning time, but the ultimate responsibility comes down to individual preparation. Know your area's typhoon history. If you live in an area that gets hit frequently, plan accordingly. Have an emergency kit ready year-round. Water, food, first aid supplies, flashlights, battery-powered radio, important documents in waterproof containers. Know your local evacuation routes and centres. Don't wait until a typhoon is 12 hours away to figure out where to go. Strengthen your home, reinforce your roof, install storm shutters, trim trees that could fall on your house. Have a family communication plan. How will you contact each other if separated? Where will you meet? And most importantly, when Pagasa issues warnings, listen. When local officials order evacuations, evacuate. Don't try to ride out a super typhoon. That's how people die. We live in the typhoon capital of the world. That's never going to change. But whether we survive and thrive despite it, that's up to us. So why does the Philippines have so many typhoons? Because we sit at the perfect latitude, on the western edge of the warmest ocean water on Earth, directly in the path of storms carried by the trade winds, in a region where atmospheric conditions favor typhoon formation for half the year. We're in the exact wrong place at the exact wrong time, all the time. But we're also Filipinos. We've survived typhoons for thousands of years. Our ancestors weathered these storms long before modern forecasting, before concrete buildings, before evacuation centers. We're resilient. We rebuild. We endure. The typhoons will keep coming. 20 per year. Maybe more. But we'll be ready. Stay informed. Stay prepared. And stay safe, Philippines.